All right. Well, this is an impromptu stream. I'm going to try, as I always do, to not waste too much time in a preamble. But look, might as well have a quick introduction, especially anyway, seeing as most people who do live streams play videos for 5 minutes in advance in order to wait for people to get in. But look, this will be recorded and anybody can play it back. And something I've been meaning to do for quite a while. There's actually several books and several pieces of literature, let's say, various types, that I've been meaning to read and discuss with people. But I'll realise it's an unusual time to be starting. But look, like with many things, there's no time like the present. I could leave this again until tomorrow, but I've been sort of messing around with audio settings and OBS and various little things that you don't obviously need to know about, but you can probably imagine that things get a little bit frustrating and then you sort of say, I'll leave it till later. I think it's all right now, and this will serve as a test, even if it doesn't come out, just as nicely as I'd like it to. I think it'll be interesting to hear it back. I've done as much as I can offline by recording locally and listening back. So hopefully the volume and the audio quality is going to come through okay. I'm using OBS, as I said, not StreamYard, so I won't be able to, if there's a way of getting people to come up and discuss if they would like to, I don't know how to do it just yet. Maybe I'll figure that out, or somebody can let me know through OBS. But look, at some stage I can use StreamYard. But I'd like to see if I can do everything through OBS if possible. Anyway, what this is going to be mostly is a reading anyway. It'll be just my voice. No real discussion. I always say I'm going to attempt not to commentate or editorialize as I read along, and I am going to do my best. But at the same time, this is not going to be an audiobook either. This is quite a short book. I don't know if I'll get through it all, but I'll just start and see how I go. And if necessary, I can continue another time, or I can just start over another time. So what I'm going to read anyway is a book which is by a fellow called Frederick Taylor Gates. When I did first hear of his name, I thought that, this must be a relative, even if a distant relative, must be a relative of William Gates, the Microsoft guy, former Microsoft guy, now philanthropist and vaccine evangelist, let's say. Anyway, I don't know if there's any connection there or not. I don't know that there is. I don't know that there isn't. But either which way, what is on record, let's say officially in his Wikipedia page, is that Frederick Taylor Gates was an advisor to John D. Rockefeller, the oil magnate and, again, philanthropist, so-called, But anyway, he was somebody who had the ear of at least one very powerful person, namely J.D. Rockefeller. And he was, well, as we'll see here, he was influential, to say the least, on the direction of the education system, not just of America, but I suppose by proxy then of the world, but certainly of the United States of America. From the early 1900s, late 1800s even, and early 1900s. So that's, I suppose, enough of an introduction as is necessary. A modus operandi, you're there. Thank you very much. I don't know in OBS how to put your comment up on the screen, but I can see it there. You're telling me the sound is perfect. That's great to know. Thank you very much for coming along and giving me feedback so quickly. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to continue on with the book here, and I will pause occasionally. If somebody wants to put something in the chat to comment on something that I've read from the book here, or to ask a question or whatever, I'd be very happy to pause and read it out and discuss. What I will say is, last thing before kicking off, is that during the convids, I think that I did hear maybe a quote from this book to do with how, they don't want people who think too much anymore. We've got enough of those kind of people. And it sounded very nefarious. And even in a wider context, when you read the whole page of the book, it definitely doesn't get any less nefarious. It doesn't get any more innocuous or sort of explainable in that he didn't really mean that. He was more in the context of, practicable education, as he says here in this book. But maybe in the wider context of the book, it doesn't seem quite so outrightly, I don't know, malevolent sounding. When I'm reading it, maybe I'm too naive or too always willing to give some benefit of the doubt when there is none, or it's been exhausted, any possibility that there should be any afforded to any of these people, these philanthropists. Call me naive if you'd like, but I like to be fair, and to really sort of go out of my way to sort of try to, as they say, steelman the opposition's argument and say, well, let's give them the full context of the whole book, not just a page, and see how it sounds in as much context as could be possible. But maybe there's a bit more context with if we looked into the year, the time, what was going on in the Department of Education and in America. Maybe there was a context of, I don't know, a lack of education overall, whatever exactly we define education as, good or bad, or who's giving it, But anyway, I think this was around 1912, 1913, so, that should be already ringing a sort of, not exactly alarm bells, but I suppose wind chimes of synchronicity, of noticing, But yeah, hello to you, modus operandi. And I see in the comments there, I've seen this before, only relatively recently. I think it might say number 1 there. So it could be that you're my number 1 commentator now or something like that. Anyway, look, I'll get on with it. That's my preamble. It wasn't too long. This is just a PDF of the book that I downloaded. So much of the stuff, thankfully, archive.org is back, and I'm pretty sure I got it from there. So much of archive.org now is back, fingers crossed, to stay. And so many PDFs there of books. And this one, thankfully, is available to download and read. So there's the barcode of it. Gates, Frederick Taylor. As it would be in a Dewey Decimal type of filing system, surname, first name, and middle name Taylor. The Country School of To-morrow. And I think it's a curious instance there to show that only in the early 20th century, only in the early 20th century, that to-morrow wasn't one word. It was hyphenated, like morrow. See you in the morrow. See you tomorrow, the one that's coming. But anyway, right. Enough. I've already had my little say, but here's the sort of inside title page. It says, Publications of the General Education Board. Occasional papers, number 1. So I think there might have been, I think I've seen on Amazon that there's number 1 to 10. So this is maybe one of a whole series written by different people, perhaps. I don't know if it was all by Frederick Gates. Maybe it was. I don't know. I'll have to, maybe you can check on Amazon. Somebody else can if they're listening back to this. Maybe he wrote 9 more. I seem to remember seeing on Amazon there's numbers 1 to 10. But anyway, this one, and maybe that would make sense. Maybe it's more like a chapter. Occasional papers, they might have been serialized in periodicals of the time, maybe. Anyway, not exactly magazines, not exactly books. Anyhow, The Country School of To-morrow by Frederick Taylor Gates. And look, when it was checked into or rather introduced as a book that could be checked in and checked out, September 18th, 1917, it was introduced into the library of the University of Toronto, Trana, in Canada. Okay. But published by the General Education Board, 17 Battery Place, New York City, 1916. Okay, so 3 years after the introduction of the Federal Reserve. And there's somebody's written in pencil there, the sort of the library filing system, I suppose, and the date that it was published 1916. Amazing, isn't it? I'm not going to read this, I don't think. Oh, no, well, I will, just to say that, so number one, occasional papers. Number one is the Country School of Tomorrow paper, 15 pages. So that's all it is, like, you know, what was published on paper. Number two, Changes Needed in American Secondary Education by Charles W. Eliot, paper, 29 pages. And number three, A Modern School by Abraham Flexner. My tuning fork ears are noticing some reverberations there. If not, with the other two guys, I don't know, but certainly with Abraham Flexner. But who knows? You know, my sensitivity might be turning up too high sometimes. You can decide yourselves. Anyway, that's paper, 24 pages. So this will be the start of the book. And I see there's another couple of comments. This is great at this time here to have people already coming in. So Modus there says, caught me on a break, woke the girls up in their tent. Canibus ruderalis. All right. Fair enough. I don't know. Oh, like you're on a holiday break, is that it? Good God. And Lily Gazoo says, and good to see you there, Lily. Thank you very much. Hope you're doing well. She says, I've been watching several videos by teachers quitting their jobs. No help from parents or administrators, being forced to pass students to the next grade, getting physically and verbally abused by kids and or verbally abused. Absolutely, Lily. And it's been going on for a long, long time. I mean, I think we know that... I think I've thought of a new euphemism, you know, the people who are just as equal to us, you know, who don't understand proportionality or pro rata or per capita, rather, I should say. Those people who don't understand per capita, they, you know, it's a teacher for, I think, at least for the last 20 years, definitely, in America, in the United States, would lose their job if they insisted on holding somebody back. You know, the school principal would be told by the Superintendent Chalmers or whoever, that just pass it on down. It's been decreed by the Board of Education that the school will lose its funding if any of the supposed math scholars, right, don't understand per capita or ratios or whatever. Just pass them anyway. If they can't speak English, don't care about science, don't know much about it, history, don't know much about science book. Anyway, I'll stop foosting around here. You get the idea. They've all had to be passed. You know exactly the score. So I'll get on with it, right? First page, and then we'll see where we are. Great to have some comments there, and great to have some people listening live. So, The Country School of Tomorrow. The subtitle is, In Which Young and Old Will Be Taught in Practicable Ways How to Make Rural Life Beautiful, Intelligent, Fruitful, Recreative, Healthful, and Joyous, by Frederick T. Gates, Chairman of the General Education Board, in brackets. So there you are. And as I say, he was an advisor to, I'm pretty sure, John D. Rockefeller, the one that has the really evil, wizened, dried up face like a prune or a raisin, who's famous for throwing shiny pennies like Mr. Burns at sort of mischievous little scamps who would say, "Give us a penny, mister, you're a millionaire or multimillionaire," you know. See, there's another comment there. I can't help pausing there. Moda says he had a nice bowl of calcium, magnesium, and seaweed extract. Did you? Okay. I appreciate the oddity of your comments, Modus. Right. I'll get on with this now. Thrown on a screen at a recent conference on rural life was a series of photographs of country school houses in various states, taken by superintendents of rural schools. A few were neatly constructed, and about them were pleasant grounds. The larger number were small, one-roomed structures set on pegs, weather-blackened, window smashed, often with wrecked entrance steps and lockless door for a chimney, a length of stove-pipe thrust through side or back. For furniture, a perpendicular combination of bench and desk, well fitted to be an engine of torture. I don't know if anybody's old enough, I am, to remember the little wooden desks with the folding up and folding down bench. We didn't, actually maybe we had one or two teachers who wanted us to write with fountain pen, a nib pen, but it had the little hole in it where an inkwell could go, right? It's where I was being educated back in Victorian times, but they were hangovers from whenever, I don't know. Not just the 1950s, the 1930s probably and more. But anyway, on I go. I suppose, look, it's not an audiobook. I suppose it wouldn't be the same if I didn't comment here or there. Anyway, these benches, yeah, absolutely well fitted to be an engine of torture. Improvement of the grounds had rarely been conceived. On the contrary, the original picturesqueness of wild nature had been defaced and belittered. From November onward, for 3 to 7 months, somewhat less than 1/2 of the school population of the district may be found there, usually taught by a young girl, often a last year's older pupil of this or a neighbouring school. Enter, and you shall see her painfully teaching her class to read sentences of English, quite likely as one would pronounce the successive words in the perpendicular columns of a spelling book. Such, in the main, we were told, are very many of the rural district schools of the South, and similar are many in the northern states. I think they're implying that in the South, well, you might expect a certain amount of rural charm, right? And even in the north, they're not so sophisticated either. Surprise, surprise, kind of thing, maybe, you know. Lily says, I used to volunteer at public schools once a week. I was shocked at how many couldn't read, even by 4th grade. They had no idea that words could be sounded out. Wow. Well, look, I won't go into it now, but I think I can say this real quick. I might have mentioned before, maybe, you know, that for a long time in the corporation, and in various, for the corporation, not just in Ireland, but all around the world, I did go around to teach people how to do their jobs in very professional settings. And a lot of it is, you know, to do with, well, you know, the administration of the tasks that they have to do, and writing up what they did and having to send emails to people to explain what they did or what they are proposing to do, and, you know, what could be tried and what maybe they could do if the client would prefer this, that or the other. And I'd be sort of dictating suggestions to people when they say, well, what should I say when I want to tell somebody this? And I go, well, maybe you could say this, that and the other. And they go, could you write it for me? And I'd sort of end up typing their emails for them. And I realized a great many people who had been not just to school, but college, university, could not read or write, couldn't really spell things, you know. And that was one of the times before 2020, like when I realized, yeah, I'd better get out of here, because, like, as in get out of the Western world, because the wheels are going to fall off, or they have already. This thing called Western civilization, this society that we supposedly have. And, you know, just hide out somewhere else. See if I can avoid the collapse of society. But no, it's a worldwide thing. If the West falls, the world falls. Yeah, anyway, I hope you know that's not me saying that I'm all brilliant and elitist, but just real basic stuff, you know. Words over one syllable. People, I don't know how people went to college, but I guess we do. People are past, you know. Here's your certificate, here's your diploma, here's your degree. If people are paying tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, they kind of go, yeah, well, look, they don't have to learn how to spell. But of course, a lot of times and it would be racist as well, especially in those cases, if somebody isn't, of the vanilla extract persuasion, then it would be racist if anybody was criticised or down-marked on their papers if all the words were spelled wrong and in the wrong order. But look, I mean, for the last, I don't know how many, maybe it's been for the last 10 years even, that people have been using some kind of form of, if not AI 10 years ago, online things that could write your papers for you. Anyway, or people who could, like 1,000 typewriters in India who could. I'll get on with it here anyway. Continuing the series of pictures, the inspectors and physicians of the Rockefeller Sanitary Commission came forward. That's all capitalized there, as must be the name of an institution. The Rockefeller Sanitary Commission came forward. Now, we're on page 4 of this here, but only the second page. The first line of the second page, he's already given a plug to, I suppose you could say, his employer, even though he was an advisor to them. And maybe they might even say that he did it for free out of the goodness of his heart, but you can be sure there was some payment in kind, even if there was no official salary. Okay, continuing with this. They had caught the schools in session and photographed teacher and pupils grouped in front of the school house. In some instances, all, teacher and pupil alike, were suffering from hookworm disease. That rings a bell. I can't remember what is exactly, but I think, is it the same as ringworm? Maybe it's along those lines. I think maybe some kind of skin rash condition, maybe. Anyway, their emaciated, misshapen or bloated bodies, their sad, pale, listless, hopeless faces, marked with habitual suffering, faces which no art could charm into a smile that would not be ghastly, told the story of disease and neglect. Well, this sounds like a picture they're painting, so in they can ride on their white horses to save these poor people, these poor, white, southern, uneducated people, because, these philanthropists in New York just care so deeply about these poor barefooted, ragged, hookwormed, infested children, buck-toothed, hillbilly children, I think, is the picture he's trying to paint out here. And so J.D. Rockefeller and Mr. William Taylor Gates must come in to save them with their great philanthropy. I think that's the picture they're painting here. But we'll read on and find out. There are well nigh or quite 2 million of these children in the South between 6 and 16 years of age, weighed down, arrested, and stunted physically and mentally by this disease. Does he mean by hookworm? Many thousands each year finding relief from it in death. Wow. This number must be multiplied by the indirect toll of increased fatality in other diseases, traceable solely to this complication. 60,000 people, most of them children, have already been treated in North Carolina alone, and the work has been conducted systematically in a few counties only. Here is a word picture drawn by one of the state superintendents of the Rockefeller Sanitary Commission, the RSC, of the crowds, often numbering several hundreds. That's just me, by the way. Just don't you know that it's capitalized, this presumably institution name. The acronym isn't printed here, the RSC, but Rockefeller Sanitary Commission. of the crowds, often numbering several hundreds, which throng his improvised dispensaries. And there's a quote coming up here of this word picture. But I'll just pause here and just read a couple of the comments here. Lily Gazoo says, it sounds like you, hey, want them prepped to be farm workers, not equipped to go on to university. They, so she said, it sounds like they want them prepped to be farm workers, not equipped to go on to university. Yeah, or industrial workers. I think it's even worse than that. They want them under an artificial sky in a windowless factory somewhere. Modus Operandi says, you are correct, Lily, 100%. Great to have the two of you there as company. I appreciate it. Okay, so here's the word picture drawn by one of the state superintendents of the Rockefeller Sanitary Commission, of the crowds, often numbering several hundreds, which throng his improvised dispensaries. The people come from far and near, from all stations in life. They come on trains, by boats, in wagons, carts, and buggies. Many come on foot from 10 to 20 miles, some too weak to make the journey and falling by the wayside are picked up by passing vehicles and brought in. Some, unable to stand or sit, are brought in on stretchers. The results following the treatment are indeed marvellous. A gain in weight of £1 a day is common. To see the crowds, to witness their transformation from invalidism, wasted ambition and poverty to health, happiness, activity and prosperity, brings to one's mind the miracles of the New Testament and the healing of the multitudes. Well, if this is a New Testament scene where Jesus is healing the sick, who are they comparing Jesus to there? Mr. J.D. Rockefeller? Is that, and is William Taylor Gates, is he like John the Baptist? Saying Jesus is coming along. I'm only baptizing these poor Southerners in his name, but Jesus D. Rockefeller is coming along to heal the multitudes with his philanthropy. I think maybe. And again, look, I have to say, there's no proof that I can find that he's related to the William Gateses, but it really does sound like they are sort of birds of a feather, New Edge Designs, great to see you there. Hey, good people. And then Slowboy is there as well. Good to see you there, Slowboy. Well, what we're reading here is The Country School of Tomorrow by William Taylor Gates. We're just finished the second page there. It's a short book. It's only a few pages in it. And you might recognize some of the key quotations if you've heard of it. I'm waiting to get to the part where it says, we have no more need for men of letters, and so on. I'm just going to take a quick drink of water, but I'll get on with this now in a second. Okay, so the inspectors, not confining their work to hookworm disease, have given all the children in many schools a general physical examination. I bet they have. They report 40 to 60% of the children defective. I wonder, are they on retard as well? And more or less disabled from other preventable and curable ailments. I'll read the whole sentence again without my commentary. They report 40 to 60% of the children defective and more or less disabled from other preventable and curable ailments. Miseries of rural life is the subheading here. The farm demonstrators, that's capitalized there, of the General Education Board, also capitalized, of which there are several hundreds in the south, complete the series of pictures of rural life in the more neglected sections. Of worn-out soil, inefficient cultivation, scanty crop, abandoned field overgrown with bushes, deeply washed and gullied hillside, rotten orchard, sprawling fence, tumble-down houses with unkempt and littered surroundings. The picture is emphasized by contrast. Growing side by side were shown in the same picture, on one hand the thin, scant, meagre crop of the one-mule farmer, and the rich, luxuriant, bountiful harvest of the farm demonstrator in the same field. Are they sowing the seeds of malcontent here? Of resentment? Of envy? Of the one against the other? Anyway, such are the pictures too often found among our everywhere neglected rural folk, among people of our own land, of our own blood, of Anglo-Saxon lineage and intelligence. Again, I wonder, is J.D. Rockefeller, and who most certainly was an outlier, and William Taylor Gates, are they basically coming along and saying, hello, my fellow Anglo-Saxon farmers? Anyway, continuing on with this, it says, to me, they tell a story unmatched in pathos, resistless in resistance in appeal. No one can look on scenes like these and turn lightly away. One is bound to pause and to muse while the fire burns. For this condition of things exists today and now, in spite of the fact that, for decade after decade, these people have enjoyed the advantages of a common school system, of county and state superintendence, of public instruction, of normal schools, of high schools in all the centres, of Christian colleges founded by denominational zeal, of state universities supported by taxation, the whole supplemented by agricultural and mechanical colleges founded by the United States government. Also, from the viewpoint of rigidly orthodox Puritan Christianity, these communities have been made Christian statistically in larger percentage than any other equal portion of mankind. Here, then, is a vast, various, costly educational system. I'll start again. Here, then, is a vast, various, costly educational system of a Christian people, unrelated directly or in any effective way, even indirectly, to the earthly life and needs of those for whom it exists, and by whose sacrifices it is, in the main, supported. A putting asunder of what God hath joined together, disastrous alike to both. I think he's definitely trying to invoke a prophetic, biblical way of speaking there. Again, coming in as though he is the second coming to save these people. Here are shepherds and there are sheep. Oh, yeah. Suffering from hunger. Yes. The loaves and the fishes. Let my people go. So anyway, I'll start again this sentence. Here are shepherds and there are sheep, suffering from hunger, devoured and torn by wolves, and neither knows the other. Can shepherds and sheep be brought together in mutual love and service? Yes, that's the question we're always asking, isn't it, J.D. Rockefeller and William T. Gates? I'll pause there before the next little section. Slowboy says, this sounds familiar, but I don't think I've read it. I must have heard someone mention it before. I bet you have. As I said just a little while before I think you joined, I think that I heard some quotes from this and then looked it up to be sure that it was real, and I was, confirmed that it was indeed real. The quote about "we shall have no more need for men of letters," meaning people who can read and write, or are educated, to a certain extent where they're literate and rational, cognitive type people. We don't want those kind of people. He goes on to say, like, we don't need any more lawyers or doctors or, what does he say? Professionals or whatever, or things like this. He says, we shall no more look for these among the great masses of men, right? Basically saying, like, yeah, no, we have enough of us now in the sort of upper echelons, right? Whatever exactly it is, like, middle class, upper middle class, upper class or non-working class, whatever it is, people that are above work, leisure class. He's basically saying, like, pull up the ladder, lads, we don't want any more upward mobility from the great masses of men. And I'll get to the quote anyway. It's probably coming up pretty soon, but I just wanted to be sure that it was real, because on its own it sounds pretty damning. I also think that in this greater context, when you know enough that we know, I think now at this stage, that these were not people who just cared so deeply about these people that they had to help them. That, once they'd earned their money, that they just really felt they needed to help their fellow man. These weren't, like, they weren't our fellow man anyway. I'm pretty confident that, having read enough now, that it is pretty much categorical that Rockefeller weren't just the agents of the Rothschilds, that they were indeed, from that same stock and married into them, I think, as well anyway. So they were totally entwined with them. So they weren't sort of fellow human beings or whatever, and just checking out to see if there's any new comments there. I see Loken is there as well. Loken Garfield, good to see you as well. So I'll read on. This next section is called A Vision of the Remedy. Is there aught, that's AUGHT, is there aught of remedy for this neglect of rural life? He asks. Let us, at least, yield ourselves to the gratifications of a beautiful dream that there is. And yeah, here's the quote now. He says, in our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our moulding hand. The present educational conventions fade from our minds, and, unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers, or men of learning or of science. We are not to raise up from among them authors, orators, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor will we cherish even the humbler ambition to raise up from among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we now have ample supply. We are to follow the admonitions of the good apostle who said, and by the way, I wonder who the good apostle is. Sounds very Masonic. We are to follow the admonitions of the good apostle who said, mind not high things, but condescend to men of low degree. And generally, you can see this is highlighted in pencil on this library book here, and generally, with respect to these high things, all that we shall try to do is just to create presently about these country homes an atmosphere and conditions such that, if by chance a child of genius should spring up from the soil, that genius will surely bud and not be blighted. Okay, actually that sounds pretty good. That if there so happens to be a child genius, that the genius will surely bud and not be blighted. Okay. That part does sound not just benign, but beneficial and beneficent. So, okay. I'm still keeping an open mind, despite the author. Okay, continuing. Putting, therefore, all high things behind us, we turn with a sense of freedom and delight to the simple, lowly, needful things that promise well for rural life. For the task that we set before ourselves is a very simple as well as a very beautiful one. To train these people as we find them for a perfectly ideal life, just where they are. Yes, ideal, for we shall allow ourselves to be extravagant, since we are only dreaming. Call it idyllic, if you like, an idyllic life under the skies and within the horizon, however narrow, where they first open their eyes. We are to try to make that life, just where it is, healthful, intelligent, efficient, to fill it with thought and purpose, and with a gracious social culture, not without its joys. Actually, I have to say that last bit sounds fine to me. It sounds like he's saying, why do we need to bring these people to the cities? Why wouldn't they want to stay where they are? I mean, doesn't it sound better? I think a lot of us are saying now it would be better that people stay where they are, grow up in their communities where there have been generations of people just like them before, where it becomes not just becomes, but maybe becomes again, and stays a tight-knit community where there are generations of people who are not just familiar with each other, but curators or cultivators of their own land and have their own roots in their own land for generations, rather than being uprooted and brought into the cities where they become deracinated, you know. So that actually sounds fair enough. Like he's saying, like, why do we have to bring them to, you know, like bring Mr. Smith to Washington? Not exactly that, but you know what I mean. Why do we need to bring all these people to be doctors and lawyers and politicians and maybe force careers onto people in cities that isn't necessarily helpful to either others or themselves? And they might actually be happier and live more fulfilling lives where they are, where they're born, where they live for generations. I think a lot of us have been fooled into thinking that it's much more sophisticated to live in a city and not know where your food comes from and not grow your own food or tend your own livestock, that kind of thing. So, you know, I don't want to be overly, you know, reading into this thing that these people are necessarily evil, or maybe the people we have now as our philanthropists are way more far gone than these people, you know. I don't know. As I say, I'm keeping an open mind. Modus says, in 6th grade, the school put me in 8th grade. Middle of 8th grade, I got promoted to high school, left the dummies behind. Wow. Skipping 2 grades, or 1.5 at the very least, is it? I mean, obviously it's impressive, but geez, I mean, I'll say this, right? It might, I don't know about your case, but doing that to anybody might not necessarily be a good thing. Might put too much pressure on them. Also, socially, maybe to be extracted from your friends and put with a lot of older boys, because I mean, there could be a lot of difference, 2 years or even 1.5 years at that age. And the other thing I've heard is that sometimes when somebody's kept back, they can actually flourish as well. So I'm just saying, I don't know about your particular case, how you found it. Would be interesting to hear how it worked out for you. But yeah, it's the kind of thing we might assume, oh, wow, that must mean you're a genius kind of thing, you know, and then you shouldn't be kept back with the dummies. And maybe you felt like these people were dummies anyway, you know, was nothing necessarily to do with what grade you were in, but, you know, whatever the town or community you were in. But, you know, it could go either way, I'd imagine. Moda says, be right back. I got to check on my CO2 levels in the herb tent. Also got to check photosynthetic. Is it photosynthetic? Photosynthetic? Active radiation. I think it is synthetic, but I'm thinking of photosynthesis. Is the adjective for that photosynthetic? Active radiation. Big words. But it sounds like you're in some kind of dope tent, but okay. Anyway, Lily says, I regret going to college. At least it was cheaper then. Yeah. I should have quit college immediately, actually, as well. I should have done a better course, a more suitable course. I stuck with something too long that wasn't working. Or wasn't teaching me much, you know. But yeah, at least it was cheaper then. Although, look, I have to admit, I didn't pay for it. My father did, and I didn't appreciate it either, to be honest. Growing herbs, are we? Yeah. Slow boy. Pathetic is correct, says Modus. All right, well, look, I'll get on with this here, right? New section here. Every industry in a curriculum. Let us take, for illustration, as the rural school unit, a territory or township, perhaps 6 miles square, 36 square miles, containing, yeah, actually, that's something, even then, I'll hold my hand up here and say, that's something that would have confused me and still does, and I would definitely have gotten it wrong. I definitely would have gotten it wrong if somebody came up to me with a sort of pop quiz on what's the difference between a square mile and a mile squared. Well, there's the difference. Well, I would have got the answer wrong. I would have said, same thing, isn't it? So there you are. Let us take for the illustration as the rural school unit, a territory or township, perhaps 6 miles square, 36 square miles, containing some 25,000 acres, and at present 150 families or more. We shall need a group of school buildings, and these we will place as near the centre as possible, and for the more distant pupils arrange daily conveyance in groups, in other words a school bus. We shall need very ample grounds, many acres. We will return to this, for just now we prefer to conceive our school grounds in the ultimate purpose of our work as embracing the entire township, since our school, in its aim, includes everybody, old as well as young. It is to be in session all the year round, and everyone shall have something yet to learn always before him. Well, I think that sounds very laudable as well. As much as I detest ongoing, inexorable current clown world, definitely, you know, that it's such a cliched phrase, but every day is a learning day. I genuinely seem to have a life lesson every day and learn something every day. So I often feel genuinely as if this life is like university or college or school, a preparatory class for whatever comes next. You know, not that I'm assuming that there has to be something, but it does often seem that way, as if this place really feels like a preparatory school for the next stage of whatever. Now, continuing with this here. So everyone shall have something yet to learn always before him. Every industry in the district finds place in our curriculum. Every kitchen, barn, dairy, shop is a laboratory for our school. The growing crops, the orchards, the vineyards, the gardens, the forests, the streams, the domestic animals, nay, even the tools of every farm are part of our scientific experiment. The horizon forms the walls of our Museum of Natural History, and the sky its roof, and all the life within is material and specimen for our study. Like, I tell you what, that sounds fantastic. And I love the way he's phrased that. It is poetic, it is prophetic. And it actually reminds me of the meter or the cadence of Paradise Lost, the John Milton thing there. In case you've never seen it, I think I did a pretty good short version of that, a very much shortened, abridged version of that. Was it last Christmas that I did it? I think I did. Paradise Lost. So yeah, it reminds me of that. Just the style of the writing. The horizon forms the walls of our Museum of Natural History. And I tell you what, that sounds much more appealing. Authentic, natural, genuine, in accordance with the natural world, than to be in an artificial environment, inside brick walls, with an artificial ceiling, a suspended artificial ceiling with artificial light. Sometimes not even windows you can look out anymore, so people won't be distracted by the outside world. That's an totally contrived, artificial type of situation, where most people don't spend their natural lives out in the natural environment created, let's say, by God. So, yeah, I mean, even the evil despots, if I'm trying to portray them that way, of 100 and so years ago, actually more or less, if this is 1922, I think it's I did it. I can't remember. 1916, 1917. 110 odd years ago, or 109, nearly 110 years ago. If these guys were evil megalomaniacs rather than philanthropists, they were a lot better than the class of philanthropists we have these days, like Oliver Borla and Billiam Gates and all the rest of them. Well, look, I'd better not. I remember where I am here. You know the score. Anyway, that's the end of that little section there. The horizon forms the walls of our Museum of Natural History, and the sky its roof, and all the life within is material and specimen for our study. Okay, the next section here, it says, Health, the first lesson. Our first plans shall be for health. By the way, whoever read this and left it back into the library underlined this in pencil. Our first plans shall be for health, as the basis of all well-being and well-doing. Good, although I wonder what they're laying the groundwork for. You know what, beginning with V and ending in scenes, so-called. Just having a quick drink of water. Our first plans shall be for health, as the basis of all well-being and well-doing. Healthy mind and a healthy body. Who wouldn't agree? We shall ferret out the local causes of ill health in the family and in the community, and also in plant and animal life. Okay, that's a lot better, because these days they just poison everything for us. We shall call to our aid, of course, the experts. In come the experts in plausible deniability. We were just following the best advice, international best practice that the experts gave us at the time. Anyway, we shall call to our aid, of course, the experts from the chemical and agricultural colleges and universities, our schools of forestry and of veterinary medicine. Veterinary medicine. They shall examine and report. They shall lecture and demonstrate before us and be in constant correspondence with us. All right. We shall submit to them our two difficult problems, and they shall solve them for us. I smell a rat, I do. Closely associated with health is the daily supply of food. I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. Sounds like he's quoting from a Bible passage. I was an hungered. Right? It sounds very archaic here, you know? Archaic. That he says an before a H here. Even though it's not a sort of aspirated H. I was an hungered, and ye gave me capitalized meat, is the quote. It should be sufficiently varied, regularly provided, suitably and appetizingly cooked. And again, underlined in pencil by whichever borrower took this from the... Where was it from? Which library? I forget now. Anyway, some university library. Was it somewhere on the West Coast? I can't quite remember. Doesn't matter. I'll move on. I'll just say this, what I think of it, right? At the University of, or library, I know it wasn't Library of Multnomah, but I remember, I think I was reading the introduction to Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and Lily told me it's not near, it's not in the, did I say it was near Portland? Oregon? I said Oregon. She said, not Oregon, it's Oregon. Oregon, or maybe Oregon. Anyway, I don't think it's from there, but by the by, I'll get on with this here. Underlined, it says, every girl and every boy shall be taught what to eat, how to eat, and how to cook. At least 3 times a day throughout his life, every one of us must eat, and the question of healthful and nutritious diet is perhaps the most important single question in life. Absolutely. But I always wonder, did they study these things? Did they study to learn what is the most healthy thing to do, just so they could invert it all? Open question, but perhaps rhetorical. Nor lives the man to whom this very thing is not by providence designed to be no inconsiderable part of his daily satisfactions. Well, it ties very much into divine providence, manifest destiny, the driving cultural zeitgeist, I suppose, mental force of America, of the American people. I suppose, like, for a couple of centuries, really. Go west, young man. Anyway, very prophetic language again, very biblical language. Nor lives the man to whom this very thing is not by providence designed to be no inconsiderable part of his daily satisfactions. The dear old lady came much nearer the heart of things than many a divinity professor when, being about to pass to her reward, like pass on to heaven, amazing, being about to pass to her reward, and her pastor asking her which of the divine mercies she felt at such a time to have been most precious, she replied, "Well, I have always enjoyed my victuals," which I think means meat. I mean, when I was a kid, you don't see it anymore, but when I was a kid, you would often see butcher and victualler. But I have a feeling that victualler was a butcher, but maybe there's a slight distinction to be made. Maybe a butcher sells meat and a victualler prepares the meat, chops it up as well. I don't know. No doubt some of you guys do know. I bet you Slow Boy knows. Something tells me that Slow Boy knows. Anyway, victuals. I have always enjoyed my victuals. victuals. It's almost her dying words. Okay, very stoic dying words. Then comes the question of shelter. I was in quotes here, I was a stranger, and ye took me in again. It's the Good Samaritan, is it? Okay. We shall teach all that is necessary to know about the sanitation of a home, from cellar to garret, the need of spotless cleanliness within it, of neatness, taste, and beauty about it. We shall show the value of ventilation, light, warmth, and the best methods of securing them. Again, if they studied all this, well, you know, in 2020, they said do the opposite. Don't have any ventilation. Stay indoors. Don't have any outside light. Don't go outdoors. Yeah, so I do think they studied all this just so they could do the opposite or enforce the opposite by mandates. We shall study the question of drainage, sewerage, the disposal of waste, the water supply, infection, its source and prevention. We shall plan model kitchens and model sanitary arrangements, model rural homes. We shall render the home and all its surroundings tasteful, comfortable, and healthful. Just pause there. Check the comments here. Right. Modus says he's germinating seeds. My God. Okay, so maybe that might explain some of the slightly odd comments. Modus. You're sounding a little bit off kilter. Anyway, Lily says, Agenda 30. Hundreds of rural hospitals closed since 2005. Rural schools are being closed across the United States due to declining enrollment, financial difficulties, and budget crises. Yeah. During the convids, Donald Trump turned to Mitch McConnell and he said, well, Mitch, he's about to sign one of these comedy checks on his desk, for convid relief, right? Talk about pork barrel spending. He said, I've never signed anything with a T, Mitch. T for trillion. I think it was 6.4 or 6.2 trillion dollars. He said, I don't know if I can handle this one, Mitch. I did a short video on that, like a YouTube short. It's pretty good, I think. Sums it all up. But people just moved on from that. And of course, he got voted in again as 47th president. 45 and 47. Add 4 and 5, you get 9. Add 4 and 7, you get 11. It is interesting, isn't it? And he wore a hat with 45-47. I mean, why wouldn't he? But add them together, keep the dash, and there you have it. It's now September the 15th. It is, in my time zone, September 14th for even the east coast of USA for another hour. But, whatever way you want to count it, 3 or 4 days ago, I was considering doing a live stream, but it just got a bit too late. I didn't sort out my equipment, and I just didn't do a sort of anniversary stream, which I did do last year. A sort of commemoration, just talk about where we are kind of thing, 9/11 and all that. I did do a video, by the way. I just put some footage of mostly the Pentagon stuff of 9/11 there, if you haven't seen it. Excuse me. Of a spoken testimony of a fellow that I've been speaking to on X, in various spaces as you can. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. He's quite a stoic fella. He doesn't, I suppose a lot of soldiers would be. They just sort of maybe are a little bit maybe perfunctory of tone. He had already written it. I said it'd be great if you would read it out, and I'll put it to, some footage. And he very kindly agreed, but he's sort of a man of not too many words in that regard. He sort of read it out, words that you'd already written as a sort of an article or essay. And I think, he's got a great voice for it. So you could, after this, listen to it if you've never listened to it before, if you didn't get a notification about it. I think that we shouldn't forget about that either. I mean, I know they say never forget and all this kind of thing, but you know the way it is with every event. Every week there's something, in the news cycle. This week alone, might as well just say we're not going to get into a discussion about it now, because look, you'll find every other place on the internet right now discussing Charlie Kirk and everything surrounding it. There's always plenty to discuss about these things. And there was a few other, incidents of shootings and whatnot. And then, of course, the other big thing only a few days prior to that was Irina Yuritska, I think it is, something along those lines anyway. And supposedly, the story, as you know, Ukrainian, only over in the States for a little while, North Carolina, Charlottesville, and some light rail train. And regardless, like I said, we're not going to get into discussion about it. Like, I know, are they real? Are they not? Or is there some kind of in between? Could be anything. But either which way, there's something every week, and we do tend to forget about these things. I wonder, will these things fade into sort of last week's, last month's, last year's news? Charlie Kirk's assassination, let's say, did overshadow 9/11 this year. It really did. And maybe that was partly why I sort of said, look, I'll leave it for now, you know. See how the dust settles, you know, that kind of way. But yeah, look, I suppose you just reminded me of that there. I'll come back on topic here anyway, but yeah, rewilding, I see you say there, Lily, rewilding, yeah, of the land. Without humans on it, of course. I don't think we've got too many pages left to go. Let me just see. I think I can continue for a little while here. I might do a part 2 of this. I might. Because I think I'm halfway through, according to the page numbers anyway. But I'll continue with this here anyway. So we shall render the home and all its surroundings tasteful, comfortable, and healthful. Trying to see how long I've been going now. Probably about an hour. Alright, so the matter of clothing shall not be neglected. In quotes he says, naked, an ye clothed me. Again, I think it's probably from the Good Samaritan, I'm guessing. We shall study cloth, its methods of manufacture, tests of its quality. Every person shall be able to distinguish between the spurious and the genuine, and to calculate economy in clothing to a nicety. Every girl shall be taught to cut, fit, and make with her own hands the ordinary clothing of the family. The matter, it's very rare now. My mother used to sew some things. Certainly repair the odd thing here and there. And I think most mothers of my generation, most of our mothers would have had a sewing machine to make repairs, like say to curtains, or, you know, if you had a soft toy, teddy bear, that kind of thing. I did, and my mother would repair those kind of things, and she was able to knit as well. And by the way, I mean, I don't know if this is a terrible admission or not, but I wonder, was it the same in the States as well? I wonder, is it the same now? Do kids do it now? Probably not. But maybe these things might make a comeback, you never know. But I do remember that, and there was never any kind of looking down at this as if to say, oh, that's only for girls. When we were in junior school, like below the age of 12, certainly below the age of 10, there must have been in school some kind of arts and crafts where knitting was part of that. You know, like you could do painting, you could do, you know, making things out of macaroni or lollipop sticks, and then part of all this kind of art and craft type work was knitting a scarf. So girls and boys, we were all taught to knit a scarf or that kind of thing. Knitting a jumper was another matter, or, you know, when I say jumper, I know in the States that means a different thing. I always make that mistake. It's sort of like a skirt or a dress, which I still have difficulty with. But over this side, a jumper is like a sweater, you know. Never would have done something like that, but a scarf, yeah. Anyway, every mother would have been able to knit something. But if your mother did ever knit you a sweater, it would have been very embarrassing. But I would appreciate it now, of course. Yeah, we always appreciate, I think, in later life, things we took for granted when we were younger. Anyway, continuing with this. Every girl shall be taught to cut, fit, and make with her own hands the ordinary clothing of the family. The matter of sanitary clothing is not unimportant. We call to mind that for a century past, one Titanic, at the very least, he's got Titanic here in italics, and bear in mind, if this was published in 1916, the Titanic sinking was very recent memory. Was it 1912 or 1910? It was prior to Federal Reserve being set up in 1913, so was it 1912? You know, when they got rid of Jonathan Astor and a few other guys that didn't agree to it. So the story goes, I tend to believe it. Anyway, we call to mind that for a century past, one Titanic, italicized here, at the very least full of children with some adults, has gone down every month in the South for a lack of knowledge of a few simple facts about the hygiene of rural homes and their surroundings, and for lack of proper clothing for the feet of the children. Okay, so I suppose it's like saying, well, look, I'll use the example of 9/11 and the World Trade Center and the Twin Towers. I think I have heard people saying that every year or every day, the same number of people in the United States die of this, that, or the other, when they want to illustrate a point, as died in the Twin Towers that day. So, okay, I can see even a few years afterwards that the comparison would be made without being, I suppose, too callous, maybe. Anyway. Yeah, so they die for the lack of, or, you know, at least full of children, some adults have gone down, right? So in other words, he's saying die from the lack of knowledge of a few simple facts about the hygiene of rural homes and their surroundings, or for lack of proper clothing for the feet of children. And by the way, look, I guess I'll say this, in Africa, I spoke to a woman who was actually a couple of years older than me, and she was Rhodesian, was born, grew up in Rhodesia, and was there for many years until, I guess it must have been around 1980. Maybe they stayed a little bit longer, and then moved to South Africa. And she, when she was a little girl, like so many, would run and play barefoot. But because of it, and I think this exists not just in Africa but also in USA and maybe everywhere, snails which can carry parasites, and often do, and the slime or the trail which they leave behind has the parasites in it. And if you unwittingly step on this trail of the slug, that the parasites can enter your feet. Maybe the slime helps it stick to your feet, and the parasites then can get into your feet if maybe the pores are open, or I don't know, you're running, you're sweaty, I don't know. But it got into her system, and in men it's fatal. In women it can make them infertile. And she never had any children. It was something she really did regret, although she didn't, I suppose, directly admit that. But it was very clear that it was something that really did affect her whole psychology very, very much. So this is something that may have happened in the US as well. I have a feeling I remember hearing or reading about that somewhere as well. Yeah, look, I think it's important just to mention these little things. Anyway, I'll move on. He says, our work on hygiene shall be very thorough, penetrative, and persistent. He really chooses words meaningfully, I think. Very clever fellow, very obviously. Our work on hygiene shall be very thorough, penetrative, and persistent, north as well as south. He's very keenly aware of a distinction between, or a difference between, the northern United States and the southern United States, whatever exactly you want to define those as. I'm pretty sure you guys listening now can define them pretty well. It isn't just a line of latitude, though. Of course, I know that much. Anyway, he says, we shall have periodic examinations of all the members of our school by qualified experts. We shall teach the hygiene of the various members of the body, the hygiene of the eye, the teeth, the digestive system, the hygiene of sex, of marriage, of infancy, of age. Yeah, study it all so you can invert it, eh? I was sick, and ye visited me. So he throws in all these punctuated biblical references. And again, I suspect it's so that he can paint himself and his cohorts, or the men who he is representing, such as J.D. Rockefeller, as gods or angels from the Bible, coming to visit these poor, the sick, the downtrodden, and the meek, so that the benefits of their exalted position can be bestowed upon them. I think they do really set these things up for a long, long time. to engender trust in these backward people so that in generations to come they can sort of count that all these institutions have been in existence so long. People would say, but why wouldn't you trust it? These institutions have been with us for generations, for hundreds of years even. Why would they do such a thing for so long? It's impossible, improbable. Anyway, next section here, and I'll go as long as I feel that I can, because I have a nasty habit sometimes of not finishing things that I started and saying I'll come back and finish it off. I'll see if I can continue. So much for health. This is again underlined in pencil by whoever borrowed this. Or maybe it was the librarian. So much for health, for food, for clothing, and for shelter. But rich delights still remain to us. We have only as yet laid the foundations. We are now prepared to teach these children. Sorry, I'm getting distracted only because I'm saying, am I still live here? Because I just didn't see a comment in a while, but I was kind of looking around to see how would I know if I'm disconnected, but I think I'm alright still. We have only as yet laid the foundations. We are now prepared to teach these children to conquer and to harness nature within their horizon to their service and to the service of the world. Starting to sound a bit Tikkun-Olamy. The farm demonstrators, or contrary to nature, to harness nature to your service. I think it's better to work in harmony with it, even if there should be a little bit of... I don't know. Anyway. The farm demonstrators of the General Education Board in the South are securing on demonstration farms. In each state, about double the average. Okay, I'll start the sentence again. They are securing on demonstration farms in each state. I said I'd start again. I must be getting a bit mentally tired now, actually, so I'll see how much farther I can go. The farm demonstrators of the General Education Board in the South are securing on demonstration farms in each state about double the average yield of cotton per acre. Mm-hmm. Their knowledge of, and this is post-Civil War, of course, well post-Civil War, their knowledge of seed selection and cotton culture, if universally applied, would double the cotton crop and bring to the cotton raiser, at the very least, $240 million added profits annually. That is $240 million. In 1916 money. Good God. What must that be now? Multiplied by, 40? Probably at least. So, I'll let somebody else do the math. Well, I mean, I guess that's 10 billion, at least. Something like that. Added profits annually. One remarks in passing that this possible increase of $240 million net profit on cotton alone in 1 year is perhaps 4 times the entire money value of all the property which all the institutions of higher learning in the cotton belt have amassed in 2 generations. So complete is their isolation from the life and interests of the people. The corn clubs of the General Education Board are demonstrating throughout the South that from 2 to 5 times the present annual yield per acre may be won from the soil. The same is possible of potatoes. The canning clubs of the same board are showing profits of from $100 to $250 per acre for the girls of the family. It is very certain that scientific farming, conducted as a business, will multiply the annual net profits of the southern farmer by at least 4. Well, look, we all know what happened 100 odd years later. You start scientific farming as a business, conducted as a business. Then they say, why don't you register on the stock exchange or as a publicly traded company, not just a privately owned family company? And then in comes these people, the money masters, international capitalism, and starts taking over your farm, or else they say you should join this conglomeration, and then they turn the conglomeration into a corporation, and then they fold that into a publicly trading corporation that they can then take over or make as a subsidiary to BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, etc. Or somebody like Bill Gates can come in and buy it. And then you have a situation where the small farmers simply cannot compete anyway. Just doesn't work economically. They can't even just use it to feed themselves. Just doesn't work out one way or another. That's where we are. So I do think that all this started from an innocuous point of view. We just want to help you, farmer. And then 100 years later is where we are, because they move so slowly over the generations. But it was only 2 to 3 generations, really. And then we need less and less farmhands, more mechanization. And you add that the birth control pill and abortion. All of these things, they combine together to create a situation that was planned for. The dispossession of people from the land and the deracination, the extirpation of the people, the uprooting of the people from the land. Anyway, I better get back to this here. So yeah, I'll just go back one sentence. It is very certain that scientific farming conducted as a business will multiply the annual net profits of the southern farmer by at least 4. It was a southern state, North Carolina. Well, that was in the news there. With, as I say, the Ukrainian girl who got stabbed by a North American light rail traveller, a ape. It was a southern state, North Carolina, that won at the Paris Exposition the first prize for the best apples in the world. In our dream, every horizon, from Virginia to Texas and from Maine to California, shall be studied with regard to its possibilities, both in abundance and variety of products and similar climates and soils the world over. Including the Orient, shall be explored and ransacked for adapted fruits, vegetables, grasses, cereals of value. We are perhaps ready now to go back to our central school, with its very ample grounds. Ample they will need to be, for the school itself is to be, within the limits of child life, a microcosm of the life of the whole community. I mean, it sounds wonderful. Not, indeed, of the life of the community as it is, for the adult population for a time will lag far behind the children. Our school shall be a picture in little of the community as it is to be, in what we called its ideal, its idyllic life. I would have to say that's a bit worrying there, in the sense that if the adults are bewildered by what the children are learning, they'll be told, you're just not sophisticated, you don't understand, these children are now surpassing you. You're only the parents of the children, but already you can see that the state, or whoever's in charge of the schools, the sort of semi-state boards, they're saying these are our children now. They're no longer your children. In fact, you don't even understand your own children. You don't identify with them in the same way. They don't identify with you. They identify more with us, the educators. You can definitely see that's happening straight away, can't you? The communistic idea of the children belong to the state, not to the parents. Anyway, the children themselves shall form a community with allotments and employments, a common social and perhaps a common manufacturing and commercial life of their own, on these ample grounds. They shall perform for themselves, under the guidance of skilled instructors, those agricultural operations, as arts which the best science of agriculture shall prescribe. They shall all be demonstrators of the highest achievable results in field, garden, kitchen, sewing room, orchard, vineyard, pasture, dairy, lawn, and meadow, not forgetful of the flowers and of the beauty of the landscape. Okay, new section here. Again, not that I'm begging for comments, but I didn't see a comment in a while, so I was just a little bit worried that I'm wondering if I'm still online, but it seems that I am. Okay. New section here, teaching what children want to know. As for the schoolhouse, we cannot now even plan the building, or rather group of buildings. Quite likely, we would not recognize the future group if the plan were put before us today. So different will it be from the traditional schoolhouse. For of one thing we may be sure. Our schools will no longer resemble, in their methods and their discipline, institutions of penal servitude. Yeah. Definitely schools seem like prisons these days, don't they, for sure? Brave New World, panopticons. Modus, really appreciate the still live confirmation there. All's good, he says. Appreciate it very much, thank you. I'll just start here again. He says, as for the schoolhouse, we cannot now even plan the building, or rather group of buildings. Quite likely we would not recognize the future group if the plan were put before us today. So different will it be from the traditional schoolhouse. For of one thing we may be sure. Our schools will no longer resemble, in their methods and their discipline, institutions of penal servitude. They will not be, as now, places of forced confinement, accompanied by physical and mental torture during 6 hours of the day. Straitjackets, now called educational, will no longer thwart and stifle the physical and mental activities of the child. We shall, on the contrary, take the child from the hand of God, the crown and glory of his creative work, by him pronounced good, and by Jesus blessed. We shall seize the restless activities of his body and mind, and, instead of repressing them, we shall stimulate those activities as the natural forces of growth in action. We shall seek to learn the instincts of the child, and reverently to follow and obey them as guides in his development, for those instincts are the voice of God within him. Oh God. I'm thinking of certain Picquaninis, if you would interpret their instincts and behaviours as things we should reverently follow and obey as guides for their development. Oh God. Teaching us the direction of his unfolding, the voice of God within him. Oh my God. Anyway, we will harness the natural activities of the child to his natural aspirations and guide and help him in their realization. The child naturally wishes to do the things that adults do, and therefore the operations of adult life form the imitative plays of the child. Exactly. And we see exactly what they do. You've probably seen the videos and memes of exactly what those little piglets do. And it seems cute sometimes, maybe, or funny or humorous when they're young, but it's not funny at all. The child lives in a dreamland full of glowing hopes of the future. The child lives in a dreamland full of glowing hopes of the future, and seeks anticipatively to live today. Again, today there, not a whole word in 1916, a hyphenated word. To live today the life of his manhood, So will we organize our children into a little community and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way, in the home, in the shop, on the farm. We shall train the child for the life before him by methods which reach the perfection of their adaptation, only when the child shall not be able to distinguish between the pleasures of his schoolwork and the pleasures of his play. Well, again, it sounds great. Sounds a lot better. Sounds a lot better than what we have now. Okay, I'm just going to check to see how many pages I've got left here. So I think only 5 pages left. I better keep going and see if I can get it done. I'll do my best to comment a little bit less. No more branding with 3 R's. This is section 2. No more branding with the 3 R's. But how about the 3 R's, he asks. The moment we cease to pursue the 3 R's as abstract ends, disassociated with anything which the child has experienced, and bring them forward only when and as the child needs to use them in his business, he will pick them up as readily as ball and bat. Now, I don't see them enumerated here, but look, just in case anybody doesn't know, I think the joke is kind of thing, it's reading, writing, and arithmetic, even though, you know, the same as I do, there's only 1 R at the beginning there of any of those, or the 3 of those, but however, it's the sound of it. The moment we cease to pursue the 3 R's as abstract ends disassociated with anything which the child has experienced and bring them forward only when and as the child needs to use them in his business, he will pick them up as readily as ball and bat. We are under no extreme necessity of penning children in a room and chaining them to a bench and there branding the 3 R's upon them. The difficulties of school life, disciplinary and otherwise, are of the teacher's making. They belong to a false method that has become traditional. How do we teach children to use carpenter's tools for illustration? By studying pictures of these tools in books, or by putting the tools themselves into the hands of the children, with material to work upon and things to make. Precisely so with the 3 R's. They are nothing in the world but tools, given them to the children as tools that they now need in something definitely put before them, and they will learn to use them easily and naturally. Well, I have to say, I agree 100% thoroughly with that. And in my experience of teaching people how to do stuff for their jobs, I realized pretty quick that you can go through the theory of something, or the sort of academic notes of something, but it means nothing to somebody. Concepts that you're trying to tell people, unless you can show them. And then, after showing them the thing, you have to say, now you have a go of it. Here. Take it in your hands. Play around with it. Mess with it. Break it even if you like. And then see what it's like when it's broken and compare it to when it was working. And then see if you can repair the thing. But even if you can't, either which way, you're going to learn something about it. You're going to recognize the symptoms of a thing after you've broken it, what the symptoms are when it's not working, and you'll be able to say, oh, why you think it's not working. Even if you can't fix the thing, you know what's wrong with it. When you recognize the symptoms, it's not always correlating. You can't always backwards derive it in a one-to-one fashion, but that's definitely what you have to do. And then after that, after they've had a chance to mess around with the actual thing physically in their hands, then you can go back to the notes, to the academic portion of it. And then the theory, the concepts, then they'll mean something because they'll be able to translate it into the real world. So I 100% agree with that. Or to a practical application of something. Otherwise, it totally is disconnected from any purpose. When something's purposeless, it seems pointless. Anyway, a new section here. The school, a cooperative democracy. But the life is more than meat. M-E-A-T. As the body is more than raiment, or raiment. Raymond, is that like a clothes hanger? I think that's what raiment is. Like, so the body is not just a hanger for clothes. I think that's what that means. Sometimes I just forget basic words. Anyway, I think that's what it is. The body is more than a clothes hanger. It is in the souls of the children that our purpose, I don't mean to say basic words, but it's a fairly common word in French, and I think that's what it is in it. It is in the, and I take it, by the way, it was used in sort of maybe more genteel speech in English, in upper class speech, maybe, in polite speech, or was it polite euphemism, I guess. Anyway, it is in the souls, back then, it is in the souls of the children that our purpose rests. Nature studies shall acquaint every child with all that he can take in of that portion of nature which lies about him, in the waters below him, in the clouds and skies above him. The children shall learn the names of all the trees, their leaves, the peculiarities of their branching, their methods of growth, their value and use, the names also of all the wild birds, their songs and their habits. And by the way, I remember sort of not just grandparents or older uncles and neighbours as well, who would have been like grandfathers and grandmothers to me as well. Those kind of people would always pass down the benefit of their knowledge. Did you see that bird? Did you see this? That's this. Did you see the leaf on this tree? That's how you know this is a sycamore tree. That's how you know that's a chestnut tree. Did you see this berry? Don't go near that. That's poisonous. Don't eat that. Or you can eat that if you like. This kind of thing. I wonder, do people still do that? And I didn't take much of it in. I don't remember a heck of a lot of it, but sometimes I remember one or two things. So yeah, definitely useful, and there's a connection then to older generations and a continuity of purpose through the generations. And I think of sort of a line of truth as well. There's an unbroken chain of truth, then I think you could say as well. Anyway, I do appreciate that. Curiosity shall be aroused. And yeah, oh God, curiosity. I was going to comment less. I have been doing on X Spaces, and I did already, I think in the last space there, we're doing these things called book club. And at the moment we're reading a book called Imperium by, is it Francis Parker Yockey, Yockey, alias Ulick Varange. Interesting book, very interesting fellow, very interesting sort of history and story about him. But anyway, I think it was in the latest recording there, and I have it on Odyssey. They're long enough now. They're always, we try to keep it short, but they always kind of run into 5 or 6 hours. But I talked about curiosity, and in how I recognise that very few people these days are curious about anything. They really don't care. They don't really want to know why anything is the way that it is, or how something is this way, or how it got to be this way. They just go, oh, well, it is that way, and you just might as well get on with it, and let's just, learn what the right answer is and get top marks. Very few people are curious, and that really started to worry me before the convids. Just hence, if people aren't curious, they'll just trust the experts. Anyway, if you're curious to listen to those book club stuff, you can find it on my Odyssey or Rumble. Same name, Eternal Extrapolations. So curiosity shall be aroused about the mysteries in the waters, in the fields and in the forests. Insect life, not less than plant life, shall disclose wondrous secrets to their eager eyes, so that the minds of the children shall be filled with interesting themes of thought, and their glance, wherever it falls, shall beam with intelligence and inquiry. So the children shall be kept from torpor and vacancy of mind. Torpor there. Torpor. Maybe I'm pronouncing it a bit too long with the O's. Torpor or torpor. 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 I don't know what it means, but I'm going to guess that it means something like, I don't know, twisted maybe? I don't know. I'm only guessing. I'll put a pin in that. Kept from torpor, as in maybe sort of vice, twisted away from the natural way of being into vice. That's what I'm guessing it might mean. And especially with the clue of vacancy there, vice and vacancy. Anyway, the breath of life shall be breathed into their clay, and they shall at last become living souls. Ruskin has somewhere said that education does not consist in teaching people to know what they do not know, but in teaching them to behave as they do not behave mentally. I'll just start that again there. It's a little bit confusing with all the maybe double negatives. Ruskin has somewhere said that education does not consist in teaching people to know what they do not know, but in teaching them to behave as they do not behave mentally, morally, physically, and socially. All right, well, maybe I'm just getting a little bit tired, but that sentence is a little bit convoluted for me. Anyway, in our little microcosm of life, the children shall form an ideal society. Their life shall be developed and perfected individually through a close-knit social life. The child shall not be riveted. The child shall not be riveted to his separate spot. He shall not be forbidden to speak or to whisper. He shall not be warned not to afford help to any unfortunate nearby. The instinct to render first aid to the injured, so to speak, shall not be repressed. Well, why would it be? That sort of piques my curiosity, or makes me start thinking, well, they're doing a bit of projection there, thinking they're doing projection, you know, that they warn each other, don't help any of these miscreants, never help a Gentile type thing, you know. Very, you know, Talmudic, if you know what I'm saying. That's what it says over and over again, don't help one of the outsiders from their perspective. Far from that, the first social principle of our school shall be to encourage the children to aid each other as freely as possible. Indeed, much of the teaching will be done under supervision by means of mutual assistance of the pupils. Doubtless the pupil groups will have their own pupil captains, as they have their baseball captains. This free social life of the children during all the hours of the school, conducted mainly out of doors, will form an ideal laboratory of manners and of character, affording opportunity for the sweetest social culture: courtesy, helpfulness, gentleness, deference, truth, reverence, honour, chivalry. These virtues shall form the breath and atmosphere of our child community. Well, I tell you what, that sounds idyllic. That sounds perfect. Sounds like heaven. It sounds like Arcadia. I completely, I'm on board with that, I have to say. They would have got me with that, to buy into their system in 1916. Hello, Christopher Calver. I'm not sure if I recognize your name, but hello to you. And what we're reading is The Country School of Tomorrow by William Frederick Gates. I don't know if he's a relation of Bill Gates. I suspect he is, but I don't know. But he was an advisor to John D. Rockefeller. And he wrote this book, or had it published rather, in 1916. And he was president, I think it is, of the General Education Board of the United States of America at that time. So we're not too far off the end of it now. Stick around. You might like to listen to the last few pages here. It's only a pamphlet, really. this new section here, it says, the art of recreation, and underlined again by either the librarian of the University College Library. I forget where it was now. I'll scroll back and satisfy my own curiosity. Failing memory. It's Toronto. It wasn't... Okay, but anyway, it was written by the General Education, or for the General Education Board of New York City. But it just so happens, Canada. Toronto. It was entered into the library in 1917, but written or published in 1916. Amazing. So, where were we? The art of recreation. So, underlined anyway. A new science or a new art, just now in process, perhaps not yet come to self-consciousness, shall be fully developed for our schools. The art of recreation, for young and old, for all pursuits, for all seasons, for both sexes, indoors, out of doors. Some sweet, healthful, happy, adapted recreation shall enter into the programme, not occasionally, but every day, for young and old alike. Ultimately, there will be professors of popular recreation. They shall be sent to us from the colleges to teach us all the ways of relief from strain and tedium, precisely adapted. And altogether we shall have our weekly half-holiday for community recreations. Beauty, too, we shall cultivate no less than recreation. It is delightful to know that the sense of beauty in sight and sound is instinctive in mankind, ineradicable, fundamental as hunger. Deeper than intelligence, it lies in our physical being, and runs down from mankind through many orders to the very insects. The sense of beauty in our rural children, as yet almost uncultivated and undeveloped, is a promising field of joy and blessedness. Well, again, I have to say that really does sound like the poem Paradise Lost, and he's describing a paradise there before the fall, or a return to a golden age. It really does sound fantastic, especially to 21st century ears of current cyberpunk dystopia. Anyway, accordingly, there shall be music, vocal and instrumental. We shall have an orchestra. It sounds like certain camps. I was going to say it does sound like. I'll just say it. It sounds like Aryan Germany. It sounds like Bellamy USA. It sounds like the fittest, the healthiest, the best of the genetic stock. It sounds like a healthy, fit society, which they don't want. They don't want people healthy anymore. There's all these warnings saying don't spend too much time exercising and becoming healthy. You may become far right. Oh no. Anyway, the art of drawing, where was I? The laws of beauty. No, back another little bit here. We shall have an orchestra, if possible, a band, a chorus, and dancing shall be taught in utmost grace of movement, beginning with the littlest children, singly and in groups. The laws of beauty are indeed little known as yet, but scenes of beauty shall everywhere be pointed out and analysed and dwelt upon to the full, and the art of drawing them shall be offered to all, as a means of close observation, of analysis, and of more perfect recognition and enjoyment of beauty. See, Modus says, I see send to Chris. Yeah. Oh, maybe it could be that I'm looking at top chat. I should have selected live chat, and then I'd see all the comments. So the comment from Christopher, which Modus was referring to or responding to, was not considered by YouTube to be worthy of going into top chat. It was sort of soft censored and put into live chat. I might as well read it out. He says, if only people in the UK realised that, you see, you're not allowed to talk about Freemasons because you're only one step away from realising who they are, or who they are at least agents for. I'll read it out anyway. If only people in the UK realised that... Actually, I don't want to get one of the bumpers underneath this, so I'll just say, me Freysons. Control the monarchy. Keir Starmer is a mere Freyson. Farage, Tony Blair, Trump, Epstein, all mere Freysons. We will never stop them until this is addressed. All right. But he must also examine, in tandem with that, the JQ. Although that's not the be-all and end-all. Ultimately, we have to fix the sickness in ourselves and our brothers and sisters, you know. Chris is saying, or Modus is saying to Chris, don't forget the Trilateral Commission. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so there's Reg from 907 Studios AK in Alaska. He says, holy shit, alive. I'm door dashing now. I might have to take a break and listen in. Aloha, everyone. Cheers. Well, take a break for a few minutes. I think I'm going to be wrapping this up in the next probably 15 minutes. So if you can do a 15-minute break, do. That's amazing, you're door dashing. Is there any snow in Alaska yet? I'm going to guess not. But I hope that you've got a good car with a working heater system, blankets, whiskey, emergency supplies you might need in the back, a shovel, a jack, a spare tire, and did I say blankets? And maybe a spare battery, light generator maybe, without making your car too heavy. I mean a small little generator, a power bank or something, you know. And I hope snow tires and extra fuel. No snow, he says anyway. Christopher says, great stream, keep it up. Cheers, says Modus. Aloha, says Lily. Well, that's great. And yeah, I saw that Jack wasn't live streaming. And so I said, okay, I won't be stepping on his toes. And you weren't either. So, although I haven't seen one from you for a little while, but because you're door dashing and having to make ends meet, that explains why. And we're all living, I think, well, it feels like we're living on borrowed time. And, yeah, it's, I think it's honourable to find any ways of doing, making a living, much more so than working inside a corporation, tapping keys, sending emails, which that's not dignified work for anybody. Although I saw a video recently that showed some people in Alaska, well, some black people who were saying, who said there's no blacks in Alaska? And they did they did as much sort of black culture things as they could do in a parking lot somewhere in Alaska. But there was beautiful mountains behind them, snow-capped mountains. And you know, it never surprises me. Well, yeah, never stops surprising me that you know, in Ireland there's lots of them there as well. I just would have thought they'd get off the plane and go, oh no, this place is far too cold and damp. So yeah, there's nowhere in the world they won't go, I guess, if there's some kind of social welfare or free housing or whatever, you know. But I'm just thinking, you as a Uber driver, hopefully it's a little bit safer up there than it is for most people doing Uber driving. There's a lot of people who just won't do Uber driving anymore. They just, you know, just can't deliver to so many places. Dangerous, you know. Don't know about you guys, but I mean, I've been on X for about a year or so now, and you just see so many videos. Anyway, I'll get on with this and finish this off, I think, in the one stream. It'd be best if I could. So, as you said, the laws of beauty. Maybe they don't know them all, but they're going to observe beauty and they're going to inculcate and highlight it wherever they can. It sounds brilliant. He says, so we have brought our little community at last to art and refinement. Such a people will demand literature and a library of their own. And when they begin to select and to read good books for themselves, our particular task will be done. We may leave them then, I think, to their natural local leaders. We have taught them how to live the life of the farm, of the fireside, of the rural community, to make it healthful, intelligent, efficient, productive, social, and no longer isolated. We have wakened sluggishness to interest and inquiry. We have given the mind, in the intelligent conduct of the daily vocation, in the study and enjoyment of nature, material for some of the joys of the intellectual life. We have trained the eye for beauty, the ear for harmony, the soul for gentleness and courtesy, and made possible to these least of Christ's brethren the life of love and joy and admiration. All that sounded lovely there, but he gave himself away, I think, when he said, we have trained the eye for beauty, the ear for harmony, the soul for gentleness and courtesy. Absolutely. And made possible to these least of Christ's brethren. Right. Isn't that lovely of him? To judge these people to whom he wants to bestow his great philanthropy of creating their schools and inculcating the next generations upwards to have idyllic utopian societies. Wasn't it lovely of him, or it gave himself away to say, these people are the least of Christ's brethren, the least of God's creations. Oh God. How very dare he. But by the way, the language he's using, absolutely, if you go listen to, at a later stage, the video I did, I think about a year ago, I think it was this time last year, sorry, not this time last year, but last January, when I published the very abridged version of Paradise Lost by John Milton, and I colorized some pictures by Doré and put them to it. So I think it's good, and you'll definitely recognize some of the same turns of phrases there. I think that's what he's trying to channel. Do you know what I mean? I think he is using Paradise Lost to infuse what he's written here with a sense of divine prophecy, of manifest destiny, or divine providence as well, Anyway, we have made country life more desirable than city life and raised up in the country the natural aristocracy of the nation. Such is our dream. Must it be altogether a dream? Surely it ought to be surely it ought to be, and therefore will be, realized, if not in its processes, and I have described processes, at all mainly for pictorial effect, certainly in its results. If it be an achievement beyond our present civilization, then our more enlightened and capable children will certainly accomplish it. Come, in the end, it must and will. Christopher says, I will have to give you some cool books to read. Maybe you can do a stream on one. Well, I have a few other books that I've been meaning to get to, and some pieces of literature and things like that. But yeah, absolutely. If you don't pile on too much of a list, but if you've got maybe a top 3 suggestions and why, yeah, definitely, yeah. You can put them into the comments of the stream afterwards when it publishes, if you like. It'd be sticking around under the thing then, and I could get notification and come back and read it. That's probably the best way of doing it, I think. By the way, any of you can talk to me or message me on X at if you're on X. If not, join up. Like, you might as well. You can get away with saying pretty much anything. Like saying anything in the spaces. Although you do have to watch what you write now. You might get a strike type thing or a suspension. If you write certain, those kind of, what I'm talking about. Like, hard R words, whether it begins with H or N. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. You just have to watch yourself a little bit. But anyway, I'm on X. I'm at eternal extrapolations. So eternal extrapolations, but with I'm extrapolations. So extrapolations. I'm also extrapolate now. I have 2 accounts on the go, but you'll find me on either, Anyway, Moda says, Chris, this book was greatness 70 years ago. Now the kids have no dads and live in a nanny state. Yeah. But I do suspect that they made this all sound, by the way, it wasn't 70 years ago, it was 110 years ago, or 109 years ago, because 1916 it was published. But I do think that he made it all sound nice and lovely, knowing that they would gradually subvert it, as long as they got people to accept that these people were our betters coming in to help us. We only want to help you, Goy, Anyway, continuing on with this, and we're nearly finished. I think only about a page or so to go. He says, but the cost in money will be limited. Like the cost for this utopia, The cost in money will be limited. The gain in money will be limitless. The farm demonstrations of scientific agriculture in the South. Earlier on I was thinking of demonstrations as in protests. No, demonstrations as in a showing of what something could be. An exhibition, The farm, so that was just my misinterpretation. Maybe anyone listening didn't make the misinterpretation I did anyway. The farm demonstrations of scientific agriculture in the South are showing average gains of $10 to $30 per acre on soil cultivated by demonstration methods. The farmers themselves, therefore, could well afford in the end to pay the expense. So he gets them to pay for it. Not the Rockefellers, I see. And then they can increase the costs. As long as they establish that there is a fee to be paid, they can always annually increase the required budget. The railroads alone could do it, out of their increased traffic created thereby. A selected group of manufacturers, another group of exporters and importers, another group of wholesale merchants, another of retail merchants, could each afford to pay the whole expense. That's them getting their claws, I think, into the sort of local businesses and saying, you have to pay a community tax, some kind of, what do they call it? Community tax or rental on property tax. God, I forget what the term is for it. But anyway, I'll move on. Retail merchants could each afford to pay the whole expense as a commercial investment for profit. And so the state, by general taxation of land, industry, trade and commerce, again, getting people to accept that land tax, industry tax, general taxation are all good things because they go to good things. It's subtle, but it's the beginning of the subversion, or it lays the foundation or the groundwork for the subversion that will come later. They're setting up the board so that they know the pieces, they know the way the board is laid out, they can come in and play their game upon it. The great chessboard, So anyway, and so the state, by general taxation of land, industry, trade and commerce, for all, would be alike benefited, could well afford to foot the bill, or the group of states forming the nation could individually pay. Right, so it could even be federal taxation. Yeah. I think I do. No, I think I'm right in seeing how they're setting up the game there. Moda says, my mistake. Yeah, no worries at all. You understand it wasn't a criticism, just a correction of the record. Yeah. But it goes to say that it proves your point even more. It was describing a greatness that could be 110 years ago rather than 70. So even more than what you're saying. It just actually pushes your point further. But you were thinking of the civil rights movement. Yeah. My God, was that 65? RSRX 65? That's 60 years, isn't it? But look, I'm not trying to correct you. You're probably talking about something else. Oh, civil rights. Sorry, no, I'm thinking of the Hart-Celler Act. Civil rights in the 50s. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, so absolutely. And the forced integration at the point of a bayonet. Anyhow, what have we got here? Yeah, just 2 more pages. Right. So, looks like it's the last section. Utilizing the college-bred youth. We shall have to look to our colleges and universities to furnish teachers. We have elaborate and effective apparatus, worked with fervid zeal for the worldwide extension of our civilization. Also, for the extension downward of the blessings of civilization through the masses of our own people. We have powerful, costly, and effective apparatus, educational and religious, all being run with much acclaim. But the machine, as we have seen, seems to be running on the reverse gears. The machine. Even he acknowledges there's a machine. And they need cogs for their machine. He says anyway, as we have seen, seems to be running on the reverse gears. Instead of carrying the fruits of civilization downward to the homes of the people, the system, as now run, is accurately adjusted to take out of the homes of the people a few of the choicer youths to... I'm thinking of my cousin Vinny. Youths? What's a ute? Of the youths. To take out of the homes of the people a few of the choicer youths to civilize these and to carry them to the top, there to group and cohere as social cream. So the advisor to John D. Rockefeller is concerned that all of the benefits of the industrial machine are flowing upwards to him and his employer, or the person he advises. That John D. Rockefeller would he's much troubled by this, no doubt. He'd like it to go the other way. He thinks when he reaps the benefits of the social cream, that this is the system or the machine in reverse. No, that's the machine as it's intended. It's functioning as intended. The system is operating as intended. So again, I detect a lie. Anyway, carrying on. Thus, the common school is adapted to select pupils for the high school. The high school is adjusted to select and send up annually to the college a quota of students prepared in the 14 units required for college entrance by the Carnegie pension system. Now, was Carnegie another guy on the Titanic who went down with Jonathan? Was it Jonathan Jacob Astor? Was Carnegie another fella who just so happened to have been given a ticket to go onto the Titanic and was against the setting up of the Federal Reserve? I think he was, and I think it was Guggenheim, maybe. Guggenheim was the other one, I think. Anyway. The college, in turn, finds its ends in the sheepskin and the cap and gown. Well, is he getting a bit me-frasonic there with the sheepskin apron, I think? Maybe. Anyway, the ancient scribes, I think so, because straight away the next word is Jerusalem. The ancient scribes of Jerusalem, likewise, not a religious order like the Pharisees, were a learned order. They were graduates of one or the other of the 2 ancient seats of learning at Jerusalem, founded in the days of Nehemiah. It definitely sounds like we're talking about the pillars of the Temple of Solomon and things like that there. Their robes, their long robes, priestly garb, Their long robes were, in fact, the academic gown, then, as now, the badge of learning. Beware of the scribes, who desire to walk in academic gowns and receive salutations in the marketplaces, and the chief places in the synagogue, and the first places at social functions. Yeah. They can practically see the palm leaves waving to fan the air around the king on his throne there in Jerusalem, in the temple. Their learning, their doctor's degrees, their academic gowns, find their end in livelihood, in personal distinction, in social advancement, and not in the enrichment and uplift of the common life. Such was Christ's criticism of the formal learning of his day. The usefulness of the college too often ends quite precisely when and where it ought to begin. The shepherds are trained, but the sheep go shepherdless. You see, these people, they fancy themselves to come in as the shepherd to the sheep. When the spirit of education shall be changed, as it will be, then the direction in which the machine works will be reversed, and the colleges will studiously employ themselves in carrying civilization with all its blessings downward to the people on the soil. I would say that's more like they'll take control of their minds. That's the way the machine will work. If schools of rural life spring up in numbers, the colleges, while it occurs to me, I'll say it, it won't be just that the people will be praying in their churches. They will be answered by their new gods, the industrialists, the people like Rockefellers, and the author of this work here, Frederick Taylor Gates. Did I say William earlier? Pretty sure it's Frederick Taylor Gates. Anyway, continuing on, the blessings downward to the people on the soil. If schools of rural life spring up in numbers, the colleges will not be slow to adopt them and to nourish them with all that is best and most helpful from their ample store. Our leading educators are eager to escape from outworn traditions in which they are enmeshed. The college campus will extend to the boundary line of the state, so as to include all its industries, its farms, and its households. Some changes there will be, perhaps in the curriculum, some additions, quite likely in the direction of applied science, some transfers of emphasis, no lowering, but rather full high advancing of standards of scholarship, culture, discipline, research, because all will be dedicated to high and rewarding ends. In the state of Wisconsin, now perhaps the best governed of all our states. Interesting. Does anybody know why he said that then in 1916? Or perhaps in the year that he was writing it, maybe leading up to 1916. In the state of Wisconsin, now perhaps the best governed of all our states, the university writes the laws that go on the statute books. University professors, interesting by the way, very interesting. So if you control the university, you control the laws that are written, or at least brought before the Congress and the Senate. So, the state of Wisconsin, the university writes the laws that go on the statute books. University professors guide and control the main departments of state administration and inquiry. I mean, sorry for the pausing again, but no wonder they wanted to take control of the universities. It's not just a sort of ivory towers full of academics and academicians. It's not just an engine spinning, it's got a gearbox connected to the government, to drive the government. So that's pretty important. University professors guide and control the main departments of state administration and inquiry. There is no limit to the financial resources which a grateful people are placing at the disposal of learning, thus consecrated to the service of the Commonwealth. Well, Commonwealth there, I mean, didn't mean the British Commonwealth, but, you know, same idea that the aristocracy or the self-appointed aristocracy would then say, oh, we're all going to get rich. It's a way, or it was a way of controlling the masses, very communistically, to think that we, your exalted people, see the injustice in that the fruits of your labour are not yours alone. Don't you worry. We're here to become your new egalitarian gods and save the day, or equalitarian gods. I do see this as them setting up the game for exactly where we are now, for gradual inculcation of resentment, envy, communism, and making everybody equal in their squalor, essentially. And their subservience to these people who would presume to be our new masters in the utopia that is going to be for them, but not us, you know. Just like the perpetual peace is for them, but not us, because we'll be their slaves, or we won't exist anymore if they can help it, even better. Anyway, we're nearly at the end here. So there is no limit to the financial resources which a grateful people are placing at the disposal of learning, thus consecrated. Oh, again, he chooses his words to invoke maximum religiosity and not just a legal binding legal construct here with a statute or a law, but a covenant, consecrated. You can imagine at the tabernacle, maybe the ritual of the water into wine or wine into blood of Jesus, but also the sort of tabernacle that was carried through the desert and, you know, consecrated the soil into the promised land type thing, you know. They're saying this is divinely ordained and you can't unwind yourself or unbind yourself from it. That's everything that's contained in the word consecrated here, and I think it was chosen by him very deliberately. Anyway, this is how they sort of stake their claims in the land and in time and in a people as well. So anyway, thus consecrated to the service of the Commonwealth. Our more ancient seats of learning pride themselves justly on their antiquity, on their dignity, on the reverence in which they are held, on the great names that have been and are associated with them. But it is yet theirs to reign over empires now undreamed, to inherit a kingdom that has awaited them from the foundation of the world, to write the laws of obedient states, to know the love of a reverent, grateful, and generous people, to scatter plenty o'er a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eyes. Now, I don't know what the last quote there, the last two lines of stanza, I don't know what that's from, but the way that he put it here, fully indented, I think it must have been a commonly known quote, or from something that was commonly known. If any of you know, let me know. Maybe it was biblical, maybe something else. Maybe it's from Paradise Lost. It has that kind of a ring to it. Scatter plenty o'er a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eyes. But again, another key, is lots of key words there, and this is a magic spell, what he's been incanting. To inherit a kingdom. Write the laws of obedient states. Obedient. Obedient to whom? To them. To Mr. Frederick Taylor Gates and his employer, John D. Rockefeller. Yeah. they will yield themselves up there. What is it? To our, the docile was in there as well. Maybe I'll go back and just see if I can find it. Was on page 2 there, or the second page. We are finished it here, but I just want to go back just to recap, because that was the quote that came out of that made me want to read this. Here it is, yeah. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our moulding hand. See, this is it. They think of themselves then, even though it all sounded lovely, as our gods. And they will sit in Jerusalem on the throne with their feet up on the rest of us. As fine, we might be, in their eyes, moulded into the perfect cogs for the society they envisage, but we won't be free. We'll be subjugated to them eternally in their Tikkun Olam world. And the kind of peace that will be a sort of an eerie peace where nobody will ever be able to challenge their position ever in their new throne, in the seat of the place of peace, Jerusalem, which is what it literally means, Jerusalem. Right, that's it. And I might sign off pretty quick because I am pretty tired here. It's after midnight on the East Coast. And it's plus several hours on the other side of the Atlantic. And I never meant to step this long, but once I got the microphone working at what I thought was sort of acceptable level and not any background noise and whatever, I said, right, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I think I can get it done. I'll do it. And thanks to you, Lily. Modus operandi says the diploma was written on sheepskin. Thank you very much. Like vellum or parchment. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Lily. And thanks to everybody who listened and made any comments. Great to have you here, because I did always think like I could be just recording it. Yes, live, but people might listen to it on the playback. So I do really appreciate that. I'm using OBS, as I said. Somewhere, I think I'm just not used to looking to see, where does it say? Oh, I forgot to say select my stream, and then I could see, yes. I forgot to select a panel where I could show me the stats of my stream by pulling it from YouTube Studio into OBS. Funnily enough, it's saying, warning, the stream is something or other. Can I expand this to say, just so I'll know the next time? It's saying my stream, I should have increased my bit rate. I had it at 1500 kbps. It's still above the minimum, but I didn't want to overdo something, so I could have increased my bit rate. Well, that's fine. I'll know for the next time. Right. Well, look, that's it. I won't stand on ceremony there. I might do another live stream again. Now, so this as well was like a test, to see if it worked, if things were all right, if the audio levels were okay, if there was no background noise or very little of it, or as much as little of it as that I could make it. And maybe I might intend to do a few more of these, maybe regularly if I can. And because look, I mean, never know the hour of the day and any of these kind of things when they might shut the internet off, or who knows, I suppose with Charlie Kirk during the week, assuming that everything is true and everything about it as it was shown to us and whatever. I mean, in that sense as well, we never know the hour, the day or the hour of our last day. So I have wasted a lot of my own days, and I should take advantage of what I can do, what I can. With regard to this kind of thing, I know it's not exactly a direct action, but unfortunately, there is a part of our civilizational, societal mentality that we do need to fix, and each of us has to play our part. And it is just, little contributions that you don't necessarily know how they move the zeitgeist, but I think that they do. And, for lack of any other better ideas. I think things like these do help. So I'll leave it at that. I won't stand in ceremony, as I say. I'll end the recording now, or I'll end the streaming now. And check me out on X. I'm Extrapolate Now on X and Extrapolations on X as well. And I do have a Rumble and Odyssey channel, same, Eternal Extrapolations on both. And I have been putting content on those, stuff that just wouldn't fly on YouTube. So check me out there if you like. Cheers for now. Hopefully see you again on YouTube, though, before too long. I'll aim for this week. Bye for now.